Thank you very much.
I'm sure.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Again, my name is Radu Ioanid. I work for the Holocaust Museum, and what I do there is to collect archives for the museum. We bring my small department, pompously called division, brings something like 4 to 6 million pages of records from all over Europe and sometimes outside Europe, dealing with Jews, but not only, with all victims of all people affected by the Holocaust, starting with refugees and ending with people who perished. And I have a difficult mission tonight because I need to tell you something about what was the Holocaust in Romania from the point of view of numbers, but also in terms of how it ended. It's a strange story. I need to tell you something about what type of records we collected from Romania and what type of records we collect in general, and then to tell you how exactly what Juliana emphasized, namely how this affects and to what degree contemporary, let's call them politics of memory. So let me start with a PowerPoint here, which is a brief story in images, general story of the Holocaust in Romania. Romania had in 1930 the third Jewish population of Europe. We are talking about 759,000 Jews. And whatever happened there, and I'm talking solely about Romanian jurisdiction now, whatever happened there was mainly Romanian responsibility, because Romania was not an occupied country, was a faithful ally until August 1944 of Nazi Germany. So that's why Raoul Hilberg, who is in my opinion the best historian of the Holocaust, says what you see on the screen. In order to understand the Holocaust in Romania, we need to talk a little bit about the background, history of Romania, territorial losses and jurisdiction, who are the perpetrators, the timing, geography, statistics, and survival, because Juliana told you the end of the story, half of the Romanian Jews survived. It's not the total catastrophe which we witnessed in Hungary, for example. As I told you, is a third Jewish community after Poland and Soviet Union. And in 1940, General Antonescu, close ally of Adolf Hitler, comes to power in alliance with the Iron Guard. They are the main ally of Soviet Union on the Eastern Front, the Romanians. And one of the reasons for which they allied themselves with Nazi Germany is not the only one, is that they lost for 11 months, from 1940, July 1940 until June 1941, they lost northern Bukovina and Bessarabia. You see them both on the map. Bessarabia being basically what's today is the Republic of Moldova. Now, when you talk about the Holocaust in Romania, we are ignoring northern Transylvania. We are deducting from the number of Jews, Romanian Jews, 150,000 Jews from northern Transylvania. They can be counted in between the Romanian victims because they were Romanian citizens, but this is a region which is occupied by Hungary, also in 1940. The summer of 1940 remains during the war under Hungarian occupation, and the Jews from this area, which you'll see in white in the northeast of the country, Jews from this area will share the fate of Hungarian Jewry, will be wiped out in 1944. So we cannot talk about them in terms of victims of the Romanian Holocaust. We can talk about them as victims of the Hungarian Holocaust or of the Holocaust in general. Who are the perpetrators in Romania? Militarized bodies of the state. We are talking about Romanian gendarmerie, army, police, and sometimes civilians, sometimes the German army too, especially at the beginning of the war. when we talk about the victims, we need to remember also the fact that around 25,000 Roma gypsies will be deported to Transnistria, only half will survive. So we are not talking only about Jews when it comes to the Holocaust in Romania. There is a third category of people who are heavily persecuted. They are members of certain neo-Protestant churches, Baptist, Adventist, Jehovah's Witnesses, who are persecuted heavily. Antonescu's regime is a fascist regime, so does things very similar to what Nazi Germany does, with the exception of there is no persecution of the handicapped, for example, like in Nazi Germany. I don't have a problem with it, as long as it's done. Thank you. Good. So again, this you can see here. Let me go quickly with you through the map. So this area here is lost to Hungary, so we are not talking about it when we are talking about the Holocaust in Romania. This is Bessarabia, and northern Bukovina is here somewhere. This will be lost and regained by the Romanians, lost in 1940, regained. This is a part of Soviet Union, which is today in Ukraine, between the Bug and the Dniester rivers, which will be, during the war, under Romanian occupation. And this will be the place where the Romanian Jews will be deported. This is what Alexander Dalin, who was a Rand Corporation researcher in the 50s, called the ethnic dumping ground of Romania. We talked about the perpetrators. The Holocaust in Romania starts relatively early and ends relatively early due to the opportunism of the Romanian government. Just at the very beginning of the war, in a few weeks, around 50,000 Jews from Bessarabia and Bukovina are killed by Romanian and German troops. And then around a little bit over 150,000 of them are deported to Transnistria. You can see the directions of deportations. And you can see the numbers of victims. We are talking only about 2.5 years, 3 years, from 1941 to 1944. These are the numbers of victims in Transnistria itself, plus the 50,000 who died before. Whoever read the famous book of Hannah Arendt, Eichmann in Jerusalem, will maybe remember that she said that the Germans were scared by the cruelty of the Romanian troops. We need to amend this. It's a little bit more complicated. When a philosopher, I apologize, simplifies, it's not good. I am a historian and a sociologist, so I go to statistics and to the facts. So she said, again, the Germans were shocked by the German army, shocked by the cruelty of the Romanians. What happened, in fact, is more complicated. Einsatzgruppe, the mobile killing units of the Germans, wrote to the Romanian headquarters, to the Romanian general staff, saying, and we have these letters, saying, it's very good that you are killing the Jews, but you cannot leave them unburied in the middle of the street, and you cannot allow, good evening, Agi, and you cannot allow them, or more exactly their clothes, to be sold, because this means epidemics. So the Germans were proper. You kill a Jew, you bury him, or you force him to dig the grave. Romanians left them in the middle of the road. It was a matter of nuance and of technique. So now, I'm sorry, but this is a reality. We like it or not, this is what happened. So Hannah Arendt was right, but she simplified, and what you see on this map is basically the areas where people were killed or let die in Transnistria, in Bessarabia, but especially in Transnistria, in the area between the Bug and the Dniester rivers. And I have to tell you that you, who I'm sure read a lot about the history of 20th century, you don't have imagination to understand what happens there. I know people who are still alive, who were left as teenagers with the dead bodies of their parents for 2 weeks in the same room, because there was no way to bury them because of the cold and because of the frozen earth. Rape of children, cannibalism when it comes to Roma, and so on and so on. I guarantee you, I don't want to make this end of the week for you truly how to say, a catalogue of horrors. But I guarantee you that you don't have imagination to understand what happens there. There were also huge massacres which happened in Transnistria. Again, this part of Ukraine occupied by the Romanians. Tens of thousands of people who were killed by Romanian gendarmerie and Ukrainian police under Romanian orders. For example, in the Golta region, 75,000 people killed in a few months. In Odessa, 25,000 Jews killed in a few days. So what happens there, it's in the Mostovoy area, another 30,000 people killed. But a big part of these people died because of typhus, because of typhoid fever, and because of lack of food. You have the number of victims here, and you have a couple of photographs. I'll show you more images. A couple of photographs showing Jewish orphans in Transnistria. But something happens. Something happens in 1942, a little bit between, a little bit before Stalingrad. Romanians did not coordinate well with the Germans, and the relationship was not what it was at the beginning of the war. There is American pressure, there is Western pressure on the Romanian government to behave. And they start to make a calculation that what if the Germans will not win the war? What if the surviving Jews could become sort of bargaining chip, sort of things through which we can win the goodwill of the Allies? So slowly, slowly, the attitude of the Romanian government changes when it comes to what was called the Jewish problem. You can see here an image which is very strange, because these kids have fur coats, but they are in Palestine, they are in Israel. And they have fur coats because they came from Transnistria, from Ukraine, where it was very cold, and this is how they reached Palestine. But anyway, roughly half of the Romanian Jewry survived the Holocaust. I will tell you something about public perceptions about, in terms of anti-Semitism in contemporary Romania, and I have to tell you that, at least when it comes to the government of Romania, things are getting a little bit better, because Romania is a EU country, because it's a NATO country. So today we are not witnessing the outrageous outburst of xenophobia when it comes to the government. I'm talking about the government, which we can witness in Hungary, but which we are witnessing in Hungary. But if you look at the statistics, you can see that there is still a sizable amount of anti-Semitism, most of it, in my opinion, induced by the Christian Orthodox Church. Look at the first two lines. And you also can see that in spite of major efforts which my organization did and certain groups in Romania achieved, there is a lot of misperception, misconception when it comes to the Holocaust in Romania. When it comes to the main war criminal, because he was executed for his war crimes, because he was heavily involved in the repression against the killing of the Jews directly through the orders which he gave and which we do have in writing. You can see how mixed again is the perception. And let me move to, I don't know how to close this. Oh, I'm okay. I'm okay. Let me move to the next slideshow, which is only, can we yeah, I don't know if no?
Just close out.
Do you want to load us up?
Yeah.
Okay, slideshow.
Go back,
View slideshow.
Good. This is a presentation about one particular massacre which happened on the territory of today's Romania. It's a pogrom in which only 13,000 Jews were killed in a few days on one train, in two death trains and in a city. And you have a little bit of statistical information about the pre-war situation of the Jews in Iasi. This was the capital of Romanian Moldova. And what you see here actually in this photograph is the gentleman with a mustache who's here sitting with the Jews from Iasi is Chaim Weizmann, who will become the president of Israel a few good years later. This is a photograph of the American Joint Distribution Committee, distribution of milk in Iasi. Same thing. This is an anti-Semitic. It was the capital of Romanian anti-Semitism. It's a map about Iasi and where is Iasi in Moldova. Maybe I should show you a little bit where it is. It's close to today's border with the Republic of Moldova, with Bessarabia. So you have the number of victims, who are the perpetrators, description of two death trains, rate of survivor 40%. You'll see in this PowerPoint why. This low rate of survivor. And Jews are brought a few days ago, taken to the cemetery and told, will be bombed, you need to build some kind of shelter. But these are the graves, actually, of the people who will be killed. And these are the people taken out. I don't know if you can see well, but somewhere in these photographs there is a cross with which they marked the houses of the Christians. So the pogrom was premeditated. No Jews live here. You see photographs of roundup of Jews in the streets of Iasi, some of them beaten up. They are taken, killed, many of them, in the streets, beaten up. Photos are taken by the Romanian secret services. In fact, they come from the ex-communist secret police archives which kept them. But also a lot of German soldiers took these photographs. We know the name of this family, the name of the kid who was killed. They are killed simply because they are Jews. The pretext is that they use flashlights in order to call the Soviets to bomb Iasi. There was not one, and the other pretext was that they shot at the Romanian and German troops. There was no Romanian soldier, no German soldier wounded in the hospital of Iasi during those days. And this is the courtyard of the prefecture of the police, where many, many Jews were killed. Actually, here is a scene after the killing. What you see here is not a good quality photograph, but it's very well documented in testimonies and in documents. Columns of Jews were brought in front of the railway station, forced to sit down with face down on the pavement. Passengers would come out from the railway station. The guard would say, just walk over them, don't worry about them. And from here, they are pushed to the trains. This is apocalypse, because they are crammed 120, 130 in a train, in a cattle car, and 60% of them die. There were 2 death trains. One went to Călăraș in the south of the country for 4 days, the other for 1 day to a locality close to Iași. But the effect was the same. And I'm going to go quickly through these images because there's no point in insisting. We even have the name of this so-called gentleman who was in charge with disembarking the Jews in one of the train stations. This is what people saw going through a train station from a regular train. Now, this is a second death train. Didn't stop anywhere, went for 10 miles for 14 hours. Again, 60% of the people died. This is absolutely unique in the history of the Holocaust. This photograph and the next one. Please notice this gentleman with the cap. This was taken in Iași, this photograph, by one photographer, and by chance we have the same man at the arrival. It's nothing to be said here. You have Romanian uniforms, you have railroad uniforms, police uniforms. Germans were involved in the city, in the killings too. Once the trains left, only Romanian escorts. It's clearly the same person. Some people survived, but orphans remained, and so on. Just 13,000 people dead. So 1/3 of the population liquidated in a few days, simply because they were Jews. I am going to show you one more series of images on the Holocaust in general, not concentrating on one let me go to the third PowerPoint. Yes. Can we do one more? I'm sorry to bother you. Once more. Yes. Thank you. Oh, this is the moment when Antonescu and the Iron Guard, which was the equivalent of the Nazi party in Romania, take power in 1940, 6th of September. Meeting between Antonescu and Hitler. Very quickly, Antonescu joins the Axis. The first major anti-Semitic outburst, the Iron Guard kills 120 Jews in Bucharest. It's basically a Romanian Kristallnacht, very similar to what happened. Destruction of synagogues. These are the Jews at the morgue in Bucharest. The Sephardic synagogue in Romania, totally destroyed and burned. A pharmacy, Jewish businesses devastated. It's an interesting wartime poster which says the following. It's about sugar rations. Christians will receive 500 grams per person per month, the Jews 100 grams, and the gypsies 200. The hierarchy is clear. You see here deportations of Jews in the summer of 1941, over the Dniester. It's a moment when the Germans and the Romanians don't coordinate. The Romanians push over the Dniester, 30,000 Jews, the Germans kill 10,000 and they push them back. Because they are busy with the killing of the Ukrainian Jews. It's a killing industry, more organized on the German side, more haphazard on the Romanian side, but it works very well on both sides. And you can see how people are deported. They are interned in, I'm talking especially about Bessarabia and northern Bukovina now. They are interned in transit camps from where they will be successfully deported in the fall of 1941. Roundups, a lot of people beaten up. Yellow stars, only in the north of the country. This is Kishinev in today's Republic of Moldova. This is a photograph which shows the leadership of the Jewish community of Balți, who will be soon executed by the Germans, not by the Romanians. Only one person survives, and we identified all the people from this photograph. Don't have time. This is an ID card in the Chisinau ghetto of a lady who's still alive. You can see what was happening to people. I'm not going to insist on this type of images. Color photographs taken by the Germans. This is a deportation of Jews from the Chisinau ghetto to Transnistria. Photos taken at the crossing of the Dniester by the Italians, Romanian Jews. Very poor. I'll show you a 1-minute clip footage showing the same thing at the very end of my visual presentation. This is about Odessa. I told you that 25,000 Jews were executed in a few days. Deportation over the Dniester, this time in 42, a smaller wave. This is not an execution. It looks like an execution. It's public humiliation of Jews at forced labor in Dobroja. But you can see what was happening to these people. They are not dead. They are bent over. Don't get yourself, please, misled. It's just a fake execution. But nevertheless. Nevertheless. And you see Romanian uniforms, German uniforms. Orphans in Transnistria. At the end of the war, and I will tell you a story in a second, a few thousand orphans from Transnistria were allowed to go to Palestine. And this is an American story, actually, because very late and very little, but the American government did something. The War Refugee Board, and more precisely, Ira Hirschman is in Ankara and Istanbul, and he has permission from the President of the United States to negotiate with the enemy, which an American ambassador doesn't have the right to do during wartime. And he has a discussion with Mr. Crețianu, who was the Romanian ambassador, and he's pushing him and bring out the orphans from Transnistria. You saw how the orphans were looking. And Crețianu says, we cannot do anything. And Hirschman says at a certain point to him, listen, Russians will come and will hang you anyway. You want a passport for your family to come to the United States? Get the orphans out. Otherwise, you'll be dead. Hang from a lamppost. The orphans got out. Mr. Hirschman received 3 passports for his family and lived happily in the United States. I don't know what's the morale of this story, but a few thousand kids survived. This is the important thing. And you can see them here in the, actually this photograph is a photo of a ship called Belasita, and this is the port of Istanbul. And this is them in Transnistria, and it's the end of my visual presentation. I want to go back here to my, yes, and show, no, I'm sorry. I want to get out from here. I want to go. Yeah, please. This one too. Yeah. Yeah, close it, please. And this one too. Good. And now I want to show you one piece of footage, which is the deportation of Jews from Balți. It's a piece of German newsreel which says that these people are Bolsheviks, and you can see how Bolsheviks looked. And this is actually a pretty big locality in Moldova, and this is them. They don't have shoes. They are so poor that they don't have shoes. And you can see under what conditions they were deported. And you can also notice Romanian escorts. So think about the fact that you are in October 1941, and there are 150,000 Jews deported under these circumstances for a couple of hundreds of kilometers, 150 miles, but walking, with kids, no nothing. This is it. No food, no money, no nothing. So no wonder that out of this 150,000, after 2 years, only 50,000 are alive. So again, a 66%. So I'm done with my historical presentation. I should have said a few words about Romania before. Yes, we can close it. Should I? It buzzes. Yeah. Romania, when it comes to its treatment of minorities, and I'll not talk too much about this because I need to say a few words about what we collect and how we collect before I finish. It's a country which has twice major problems with the Western powers. In 1877, at the independence, or more precisely 1 year after the independence of Romania, in 1878, Romanian authorities are told by the Western powers, by the Conference of Berlin, we will not recognize your independence if you don't give rights to the minorities, including rights to the Jews. So what they did was, what the Romanians did, they said, absolutely, yes, we'll do it. But in fact, thank you. But in fact, what they did was to enact a law which granted citizenship to the Jews through individual vote of the parliament. It's like today, an immigrant would get citizenship in the United States through an individual vote of the House of Representatives. So there were 888 Jews who got citizenship because they were veterans of the War of Independence, and a few dozens until the end of World War I who got also citizenship because they had the means, because they had connections and so on. Nobody gets citizenship, but they have all the obligations of the citizens in terms of being drafted into the army, paying taxes and so on. After World War I, it's the same story because Romania enlarges its territory, gets Bessarabia, Bukovina and Transylvania from the Tsarist Empire, from the Austrian Empire. And the same story happens again, but this time the Western powers are successful in the sense that Jews and the rest of the minorities receive rights. After the fall of communism, the history of Holocaust doesn't exist. Communist authorities go to Paris and lie, simply lie at the peace conference about saying that only a few thousand Jews died. So they go there and they lie. And very quickly the whole history is forgotten, with the exception of the Holocaust in northern Transylvania, because there it's always good to hit on the hereditary enemy, the Hungarians. In fact, there is a very funny story. Antonescu, during funny and tragic and comic, you know, Antonescu during the war gave to the Germans permission to deport and to kill the Jews from Western Europe. So there are a few thousand Jews in Paris who are deported, a few hundreds in Berlin, Prague, Netherlands, and so on. Comes a cable from Budapest, from the Romanian legation, saying, but look, Hungarian Jews from Paris don't have yellow stars, and Hungarian Jews, their properties are not confiscated. Romanian Jews have yellow stars. Romanian Jews are losing their properties to the French and to the Germans. So Antonescu says, but a Romanian Jew cannot be inferior to a Hungarian Jew. I don't allow this. And he started, it's true, this is how it was. And he starts to protect these Jews to a certain degree. Well, that's why I said the hereditary enemy. Anyway, let me get to the documents. We collect a few good millions of pages of records every year from all over Europe and outside Europe. We do full folder microfilming or full folder scanning. We create huge archival repositories which deals with anything from the creation, the start of the Nazi regime or the creation of the Nazi party, and ending with, I don't know, the fate of the refugees and the trials after after the war. So anything which is related to this huge topic is of interest to us. In general, we got good cooperation for many, many governments. There were a few difficult countries. I'll start with those. We cannot get one piece of information out of Turkey. Zero. Turkey is not better or worse than any neutral country, you know. But nothing, they're absolutely paranoid about giving access. Greece was a difficult country. We are successful now, but it took a long time and it was very difficult. Belgium was difficult, extremely difficult. They have 3 layers of archival administrations, the Flemish, the Wallon, and plus their so-called federal archives. Ireland was kind of difficult. I cannot understand why, although they were pretty pro-Nazi. And the Vatican opened its archive only until 1938. We know a lot because we have what they sent out. And it's a complex, complicated story. But, I mean, but wartime records are not open in the Vatican. We'll see with the new Pope because they opened by papal cycle, their archives. This is how they operate. Politics of memory, only a few words, and I will need to stop because perhaps you have questions. Every nation, European nation, I'm not talking about United States, but every European nation, when it comes to the Holocaust, has a national myth. Romania rescued its Jews. It's only Hungarians who were involved. Bulgaria rescued all Jews, although they forget about the fact that Jews from Macedonia and Thrace were given to the Germans and killed. The French, they were all in the resistance since the first day. When you look at who was in the resistance, first of all, they were Jews and communists. And then slowly, you know, getting closer, getting more desperate or more courageous, God knows. But look at President Mitterrand and his record, wartime record. You don't need to believe me. But we got very good cooperation. In terms of French archives, it was really very good. So sometimes you need to fight against this national myth when it comes to politics and politicians. It was relatively more difficult in countries, in post-communist countries, because what happened in terms of ideology there immediately after the fall of communism was nationalism, or ultra-nationalism, and a lot of them were protecting the national myth. But we got good access in all these countries, including Albania, including Serbia under Milosevic. So the reality is that it's very difficult now for somebody serious who wants to look at the documents to deny that these atrocities happened, because only in the case of Romania, I can tell you, we have millions of pages of records, starting with records from the General Staff of the Army, going through the secret police records, continuing through the trials of the war criminals, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and so on and so on. I'm talking about the major agencies now. And this repeats itself at the level of each country. Again, going back to Romania, the situation improved gradually because they have now a huge monument which honors the victims of the Holocaust. In general, politicians refrain, not saying that there is no anti-Semitism, but refrain of making outrageous anti-Semitic statements because it's not in fashion or is not acceptable when it comes to NATO and EU. I have to tell you that we got great support from, we are a federal agency of the US government, great support from US embassies in opening these archives, because in some of these countries you go in with the American ambassador and they need to do something, especially when you are a NATO candidate. After you get into NATO, you cannot be so cooperative, you know. That depends on the timing.